Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of the FutureSox Podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me this evening is Mr. James Fox. How are you, James?
Good, man. What's going on?
You know, you broke some news this morning, and people are asking all sorts of questions about it, so I figured we just hop into it right now. Drew Thorpe will be making a start. It has been confirmed by the manager still of the White Sox, Pedro Grifol.
Gonna be the manager for a while, it seems like.
That's what they're saying. So, Drew Thorpe's going to be making the Tuesday start in Seattle.
Yes.
Is it in Seattle? It's in Seattle, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So he's going to be making the start there. So let's start the conversations about the White Sox minor league pitching, which is going to be like a big thing here for this episode. Something that we're going to get pretty in depth on, I would guess. So your thoughts on the Drew Thorpe promotion?
Works for me. I knew they needed a starter for Tuesday. Just it's math, right? Like they, when they skipped Cannon's day, so like Cannon's ready for Wednesday, but they don't have anybody to be ready for Tuesday. Now Thorpe is not on the 40-man. For some reason, I thought he was, so they have to add him, which is fine. But I mean, the only guys on were like Iriarte, Eater. And look, like Drew Thorpe's the next guy. Like this makes sense because if Drew Thorpe goes up and pitches well, I think Drew Thorpe stays. We just kind of talked about this a little bit off air. There's just, I feel like the White Sox are in the mode where if Jonathan Cannon and Nick Nastrini were really good each time, they'd get each turn, but they haven't been. And I think that's open for debate, like if they're handling this the correct way, but they truly feel like, I think, okay, there's some stuff for these guys to work on, send them back down, right? And if they feel that way about Thorpe after these couple starts, like they'll probably send him down too. And all the people asking for Charlotte will probably get that. That's because that's probably where he would go, is my guess. So, but no, I think he has every opportunity here to stay in the rotation for the rest of the season. I think it's exciting for people that are watching the games, right? Like you get to see a pitching prospect instead of Jake Woodford. Like no offense to him, but like show me a guy that might be on the next good White Sox team. And I think, there's a few guys in the rotation now where that could be the case.
Yeah, I don't think that it should really be up for debate whether or not Drew Thorpe is ready to come up, despite the fact that he's just been doing this in Double-A. For those of you who have not been paying as close attention as we do, Drew Thorpe is 7-1 with a 1.35 ERA and a 0.87 WHIP in 60 innings pitched. He does not allow good contact for the most part, and also does not walk guys very often. His walk to strikeout ratio is, what is it? It's
well, I know it's
17.
Yeah, it's 56 Ks in 60 innings, 17 walks. So I don't know what the percentage is. But yeah, and I think that's like the only negative, right? Is the K rate. That's it. And he struck out a ton of guys last year. So this does seem to be like a this year type thing. Like I get it, like I don't even know if they're criticisms, right? But people are worried that he throws 91, 92. The changeup is so good because it looks like the fastball. Like, just wait. Like, if you haven't watched him pitch, like, I think we're going to find out, because I also think this is a good matchup for him. See, like, Seattle's a good team, but offensively, this works, I think.
Yeah, I don't think that it just makes total sense at this point. I don't think the one thing that I have questions about is the fact that the front office and Pedro are still trying to fool themselves into thinking that they need to be competitive for any reason whatsoever this year. Did you pay attention to the game today at all? I mean, just a absolutely brutal job of managing the game today from Pedro. I'm not entirely sure what he was, some of those decisions he made today were pretty awful.
Do you think Lee is like unavailable somehow? That's like the only explanation. That's like the only thing that would make sense.
Yeah,
Because there were multiple times where they could have pinch hit for Maldonado, which means Lee would have to come in and play. And like, look, trust me, I don't want to give this man the benefit of the doubt, but like that, like if he's like unavailable or something, I could see it. But other than that, like, there's literally no reason for Martin Maldonado to be playing this much.
this is the one that really now. I like Duke Ellis a lot. There are certain things that he does that are high impact skill sets, and pinch running him for a guy who has decent speed just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Duke is a weapon on the base paths, but to do it that early in the game, to me, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense, because with the way this team's bullpen has been performing, you kind of have to figure that he's going to get another at bat, maybe even two if you blow it and end up tied going into extras. Shocker. It just seemed like a very short-sighted and just kind of a silly move to make. I didn't see the point, there's so many things that happen on the reg with Pedro Grifol that just kind of make me question, like, where are these moves coming from? Like, what are the thoughts behind some of the decisions? Like, I don't know. Some of the relief pitching decisions are kind of weird. I don't know.
It's play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's what it is. Like, It's just, and apparently, like, I've often referenced Bob Nightingale's Sunday Notes column. It's one of the greatest things on the internet, guys. Like, we always like pick on Bob when he's wrong, but buried into his Sunday piece are like all these nuggets where like 75% of them like come true. And it's really funny because, like, the off-season ones are great because they're like, this guy is going to sign with San Diego this week. And like, nobody else has this, right? And then it gets aggregated and you're like, what the hell is this? And then you go back to the original Nightingale column and you're like, oh, okay, then. Well, this guy's,
there it is.
Whatever, right? So he does this every week and he always has White Sox stuff. And today he kind of puts it in there that they have like no plans to fire Pedro Grifol, but they'll definitely reassess like after the season, which says like he's not the manager in 2025. Like, this is over, but it goes back to discussions you and I have had and what we talked about with Beef. Like, is he actively doing you harm? If that answers yes, they should probably fire him. I don't know how much they care, but it is very clearly a Jerry Reinsdorf decision. I mean, Chris Getz did not speak this weekend. Like, I don't think that's an accident. Because what is he going to say about this situation? If he's not allowed to fire his manager, like, what is there for Chris Getz to say right now? I'm sure he'll talk after transactions. He'll talk after the draft, but I just, like, I don't need to hear from Chris Getz right now.
No, there's what's the point? If he's not firing Pedro Grifol, unless there is a big shift in who's getting called up, because as of right now, I mean, Drew Thorpe is a big deal, and I would expect if he comes out and he just shoves when he comes out, then we'll hear possibly from Chris Getz. But as of right now, when they're picking up guys like Duke Ellis, guys that are outside fourth outfielder tertiary pieces, that I don't see why he's really going to come up and talk at this point. It doesn't really
so
move anything.
There's a question from Doug about somebody getting moved up to Double-A. We should tackle this now just because. So he does mention relievers, which, like, they probably need an arm. I've gotten a lot of questions this today, I guess, like if somebody would go from Winston to double to replace Thorpe, and nobody needs to, like, in theory, like in the starting rotation. Like, Noah Schultz will continue to start every Saturday. And I heard from a source today that, they were hoping for 25 starts that'd get him 100 innings. But I think it's only going to be 23 23 starts. If I looked at the calendar correctly, it might be 24 starts. So
Yeah,
we'll
because
see.
he's only pitching on Saturdays. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So whatever, like that's still 96 innings if he goes 4 each time, which is fine. And then somebody will just start twice a week. There's Jairo Iriarte, Mason Adams, Jake Eater, Kai Bush, right? Like, so whoever starts Tuesday will also start Sunday. Schultz will go every Saturday, but instead of one of those guys following him, it'll just be the traditional bullpen. So yes, they probably need a reliever or two in Birmingham.
So they just brought Tristan Stivers up from the ACL, but that was on the back of Addison Coffey moving up to AAA. So that didn't really move the needle there. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're short on relievers. I think it's kind of on guys that you are 100% confident in maybe they're short, but Sergio Santos has shown so far this year that he's not afraid to let a guy go in there and fail. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's fine with the way his roster is right now as far as the relief corps goes. But who knows? I will bring that up right now because that way we can take a look at who exactly we're thinking about here.
And then do you think AHT, is he the closer now?
He hasn't been. So he's been pitching.
But he pitched the ninth the other night, didn't he?
Let me think here.
I knew he wasn't, but I didn't know if now without Cousine and them, like he pitched the ninth, I'm pretty sure like 2 or 3 nights ago. So I was wondering if he would just get that role now.
He pitched the 7th today. He came in right after Kai Bush. It might be, and like I didn't even think about this until you just mentioned it right now. I'd have to go and look and see who was up in the order at that particular time for the Smokies. That could have been him. As Pedro would say, attacking leverage,
right?
And
that's probably how Santos is managing, to be honest. So
yeah, I mean, yes, you could possibly move Jared Kelly back up, but
has he been okay or no? In Winston?
He's been decent. Yeah, I think he's got like 3 or 4 saves. I think if it's not 3 or 4 saves, he's got 3 or 4 holds.
Yeah,
and he's been pretty decent.
And then Eric Adler's in Birmingham already.
Yeah, yep.
What do you think? Has Shane Murphy moved back yet? I guess we could look at the trend. No,
I mean they have.
My guess is he's not staying in Charlotte.
That would be also my guess.
That'll be in the Strini back there, but
there is nothing yet on the transaction. But usually those transactions are made on Monday on their days off, so. We find out about it through the grapevine,
yes,
on Sundays, but usually don't find out from the club until Monday. So,
or Saturday morning or Sunday mornings in my case, and then I rush to see if I could beat all of the beat writers that get paid to cover this team full time.
Take that, guys. Yeah. So your assessment of how the White Sox are handling these guys that are up in Chicago, bouncing them back and forth. Now, I know that you think if you think that they need work on one particular thing or they're trying to continue their development, do you think that that's a good idea to do it that way or just let them work it out in Chicago? Because this team's garbage.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Well, so I do still feel like they at least think that, like it's professional sports and you owe it to like the veterans in your locker room to like at least try. Like, you know what I mean? Like if Nick Nastrini is actively making it harder for other people to do their jobs, like I understand why they'd rather have him working in Charlotte, right? Like it's a ton of walks that affects your whole team, things along those lines. Like Nick Nastrini's slider freaking plays, man, like in the big leagues. But one of the issues he's always had dating back to UCLA, and the Dodgers fixed some of this. And obviously, like, he was on top 100 list this offseason. Like he pitched well down the stretch last year. Like that was a decent trade. But his command like escapes him. Like if he can't throw that slider if he's not up in the count. So that's one of the things, right? And it seems like the White Sox are fine with just like shuttling these guys back to Charlotte to work on stuff that they don't deem appropriate to work in Chicago, right? And I think I've been a in Bannister we trust guy. My thought is he has some, like part of this. I'm sure he's at least asked about it, right? Like I think he's probably asked about every pitching decision. So I don't really care that much, but also something we talked about before we got on. It's Nick Nastrini and Jonathan Cannon. Like I just feel like they're not the most important guys necessarily, right? Like, are they going to do this with Drew Thorpe? My thought would be no. I think they would let him take some lumps and just keep him up. So yeah, like we'll see, right? I think these are like obviously Mike Shirley is still in the organization. Chris Getz was here in a different role, but both of these guys, Jonathan Cannon and Nastrini, were acquired by the old regime.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's fair.
But it's weird. I mean, like, would you rather see Nastrini every 5 days? Yeah, I don't need to see Mike Clevenger ever again. Like, trade Chris Flexen, right? But I think that stuff's coming soon enough. Like, I just think we have to wait a few more weeks, and some of these guys are going to be gone. That's like there was a question earlier about when we're going to see some of these minor league relievers in Chicago. Oh, you'll see them. Like when John Brebbia is traded for an international prospect that I've never heard of, and Steven Wilson's traded for somebody and such, right? Like we're going to see all these guys. Like it's going to be an all-time Sox Machine Sporkle quiz.
Yeah, that's going to be a rough one. One interesting thing that I just thought about looking at this roster for the Barons is that we haven't seen Connor McCullough in a month. And he's not on the injured list. We just haven't seen him. So I'm kind of curious as to where he's been. I imagine that has to be some sort of a nagging injury, if not something more serious, because you know how when something bad happens, they usually don't tell anybody about it, and you just see him show up on his Instagram with a scar on his elbow. I'm hoping that's not the case, but he's one of those guys that would be a Noah Schultz piggyback type guy. He's the guy who could go 4 or 5 innings if needed to be.
Do you think like they would not have Gowans start anymore and have him do something like that? I mean, I feel like they should keep starting him. Like
he just threw 8 innings today.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like, but who's like the most realistic guy from Winston? Because I mean, even like Shane Murphy should probably be starting, right? Like, I don't know if bringing him in after Schultz even makes the most sense. Like when you're trying to win a Southern League title, regardless of like what people think about that, right? Like, I'd almost like to turn the lineup over and have a righty pitch, like after Noah Schultz, because I don't know if anybody's like, are people letting lefties face him? Like, I don't.
Yeah, they have been. Have been. It's not working out well for him.
Yeah,
There's actually
great.
The other day, some left-handed guy tried to drag bunt on a slider, and he whiffed on it by about like 2 feet. So
yeah,
they're trying to hit him, but Corella, he's been really hit or miss this year. I don't know, and with the way that Gowans has been developing this year, especially the fact that you didn't know what you were going to be, at least we didn't know what they were going to be doing with him. To me, it would seem really short-sighted to have him stop starting just to bump him up to AA. I would want to put him where he's comfortable, and putting him in a piggyback role. I'd rather start him off in a piggyback and go to a not piggyback than go the other way around, Because
it makes sense to me. I mean, I would just have enough relievers in Birmingham to just run a traditional bullpen game after Schultz,
Yeah.
And God forbid he go 5 innings every once in a while. Like,
especially when he's got 40 pitches after 4 innings.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if now that they're not committed to the next guy going 5, I wonder if we see any of that, right? Because I've heard 100 innings a lot. Like the Sox would love 100 innings, right? It's going to be tough to do that with 4 inning starts. They'll get him 85 to 90 for sure. But 100, I don't think they can get to, because I don't see 25 starts looking at the calendar.
Yeah. No, I guess we'll see, huh?
Yeah.
So looking at the Barons currently as constructed, they have Adler, Dahlquist, Caleb Freeman, who's been pitching here and there, but his command's been all over the place. Lots of walks. He had 4 walks in 1 inning. Couple like last week, I think. You got Hoopy Tui Onatoa.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Gil Luna, McCullough, who's MIA, Jordan Michael, Jake Palish, Garrett Shanley, and Tristan Stivers. So I mean, there is a good amount of relievers, and since this is only happening once every week, I think that it would be. I think that they would be okay with, having that just eat up the last half of that game. I think there's enough innings to go around. Especially, I know some of those guys can eat up multiple innings because they've started. So, yeah, we'll get to the trade stuff here in just a moment. So you got some mic stuff going on?
I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, cool. So, yeah, if you hadn't noticed, or if you hadn't heard the Riley Gowans thing, today he could have basically thrown a complete game shutout in Rome, and he's looked really good.
Mm-hmm. It was in Rome though, so it's going to take him a while to get back.
Yes, it's a slow boat back from Rome. Yeah, he looked really good. Not a lot of strikeouts. He had 6, which is kind of middle of the road for him this year. But last week was a bounce back for him. This week was like a complete step forward. So I'm hoping that he just kind of keeps on this this path and just keeps on pushing forward, because before this year, he had never qualified even for a win. So the fact that he's in advanced A and he's consistently been in the discussion of, getting a decision every start, definitely a good thing. So
for sure.
Lucas Gordon pitched today. Looked okay, a little bit higher walks than I would have liked, but Cannonballers have been looking really good. I don't have the record in front of me, but they're in the
30 something and 19, or it's pretty good.
Yeah, and the Barons are like 37 and 20.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Boy, were we wrong on the Kannapolis Cannonballers.
It would seem so. We were wondering where the runs were going to come from.
Yeah, like we were worried about the offense. Like I didn't know Riku Nishido was going to. Now look, like I said, he was going to be fun, right? And kids in Kannapolis this guy would be their favorite player, and husbands, their wives would go to baseball games because this wacky dude's like playing on the team, right? It's like a novelty act. It's a novelty act with a 150 WRC plus, though. So like I don't know. Like, is he a prospect or no? Like, I'm not sure. We'll see, because he's a college guy in Canny, right? So he's gonna have to keep doing it. But like, there's room for guys like this. Like, and I hope he makes it, because he's awesome. It's like a Duke Ellis thing.
There's a skill set there. There's definitely a skill set. I'm just not sure yet if it's going to translate as he climbs the ladder. Like the fact that he's doing it in Kannapolis, I guess I'm not shocked. I was after, we always talk about the first year a guy gets drafted, just kind of disregard their numbers. And like I saw some good stuff out of him last year, and he did some really fun stuff. But the numbers didn't really, like the compiling numbers didn't really show up,
right. Yeah.
And even in that short time. But yeah, he's been a lot of fun this year, and he's always on base.
Well, that's the thing I didn't really. I think that's the thing that I underestimated, right? Like, I knew he did the thing where He'd bring both bats in college, right? He's hitting with wood in college, which is weird after you're watching all these BB core monsters, right? And he's just like he'll slap a ball the opposite way and he'll get a single, right? I didn't anticipate him walking this much. 21% walk rate.
Yeah.
Like if you would have told me that, I mean, this is a 11th round pick that's like a priority guy, that's like the 11th round pick is important. As we'll talk about more as we, discuss draft stuff. Like this is a guy they really wanted. They paid him over slot to get him. He's like really fun and interesting.
Yeah, he's got 48 walks through 53 games, I think, right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. And today he didn't have a chance to get a walk in the first at bat because he got hit by a pitch. But he had walked in, I think, two plate appearances to lead off the game. He was on base 5 out of the 6 games this week for the for the Cannonballers to lead off the game. So they're always starting off the game with somebody on base and somebody that is an agitator and super annoying to the other team. So it's pretty awesome.
So I've seen lots of questions and comments on a particular player in Kannapolis that I'd like to ask you about. So Grant Taylor is legit. I don't think, we're not going to argue that. Like this is a dude. I think when we go to do our midseason top 30, it's going to be a big time debate for like how high he moves up on the like pitching spectrum in this org. I get lots of questions on like whether it's worth it or not to have him pitching in Kannapolis. And it's like not something that I'm really that worried about. I know like some of our colleagues, I guess, even like have wondered this, like, oh, he's too good for Kannapolis, whatever. To me, as long as Grant Taylor hits like whatever innings threshold the White Sox have like deemed appropriate for him, like I'm good. I don't care where he pitches. Like if he dominates Canny all year, like I think that's fine. Like I know he's better than that. That's fine. You can always just like skip him up quickly to Birmingham next year and then he's right on target. So I don't know. How much do you think it matters that he just like runs through Kannapolis, like, or does he like need a promotion?
I think, we talked about this exact same thing with Noah Schultz earlier and wondering if they were going to keep him in Winston-Salem. We said all he needed was innings. So is that okay to just leave him in Winston-Salem and let him get his innings there? Yeah, it would be fine. But here's the good thing is that they bumped him to Birmingham to see if that would take. And he looks just as good there as he did in Winston-Salem. So I would say with Taylor, I would be perfectly fine with them bumping him up to Winston-Salem, say. I don't think that I'd want him to go straight to Birmingham. I think that that's being a little crazy aggressive, despite the fact that you've got a guy that's touching 100 in A-ball, with ridiculous command. And I believe, if I remember correctly, he's still got 0 walks, through 25 innings or whatever it is.
So this is like what it looks like when, like the best case scenario after Tommy John, right? And I think we all act like it's no big deal. And look, I do the same thing. Like I've said it on this show for years. Like, they had Tommy John. Who cares? Like they fix everything, right? And some guys don't come back the same or right. He is back with better stuff. Like he had great stuff. He was going to be a top 25 pick. Like if he was this guy, he would have been a top 10 pick. Like, and the White Sox took him in the second round. Like good on them. Like it, and yeah, we'll see. But this is it's pretty exciting. It's must see highlighting on Friday nights in the Carolina League.
Oh, I want to bring this up here since it's being brought up. What's up with Jake Eder? Now, I don't know exactly what you mean, but if you're asking about the amount of runs that he gave up the other day, so the Smokies are the Cubs AA affiliate, and it seems like no matter who is on that club, how good they are, they always give the Barons fits. And they have the most annoying at-bats that you could possibly think of, and it's just absolutely maddening to watch. The other day, Eder had one at bat in particular where it was a 13 pitch walk. And it was like he kind of ran into a wall after that 13 pitch walk, and a couple of singles got hit after that. He didn't give up like any crazy contact. He did give up a couple more runs on a home run later. But I don't think that anything necessarily is wrong with either. Now, I will say, if you, I don't know exactly what it is. I'd have to look it up, but the BABIP for hitters going against either is ridiculously unsustainably high. It's somewhere in like the high threes to low 400s. So I'm not worried about him. We'll see what happens as the year goes along, but I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm curious if he's one of the guys that's going to make starts like down the stretch, just because, like in Chicago, just because he's like one of the guys on the 40 man. And like somebody mentioned, Trey. Yeah, he's 25 with a FIP under 3. So,
yep.
Like if he, I would think if somebody's going to Charlotte, it's him or Bush, right? Both of those guys could make starts for the White Sox in the second half of the year. So yeah, I think they're both okay. I think with Eater, like he gets off mechanically, it's walks with him. But I mean, even the other day he gave up 5 runs, he struck out 7. I mean, his stuff's nasty.
He only walked 1, I think.
Yeah, I mean his stuff's really good. And I know there's like a certain segment of people that like they don't want him to fail, but I think it's just like they didn't like that trade. Yeah. So, it's kind of like, oh, this guy like stinks because he's 25. Like I get it. Like he is 25. Like this is what happens when you're like an older college guy, you get taken and then you get hurt twice. I mean, yeah, you're 25. Which is why I advocate taking high school players. But yeah, no, I think Jake Eater's been okay.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with what he's done. I think the whole thing boils down to is that because it was Jake Burger, they think that the White Sox needed to get some sort of guy that was going to be a Cy Young Award winner this year in order for that to justify trading the guy, the awesome teammate and great guy in Jake Burger, who is the power guy for the White Sox. And we don't have any power, so we're going to trade the only guy who's going to hit 30 home runs, and we need to get a Cy Young Award winner for this guy. And I think that's kind of unrealistic expectations and is kind of silly, personally. Yes, there is also the I told you so faction. There's definitely people who desperately want to be right about that trade, but it's not like Burger has been good. Yeah, he had some injuries and whatever. I don't want anything bad for Jake Burger. I just want Jake Eater to be serviceable. I want him to be a decent pitcher. And so far he has done that. He just needs to continue to work, and he'll be up and he'll be fine. So do you want to move on to the trade stuff?
Sure. Yeah, I saw
there's lots of comments.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there were lots of comments on it. So I talked about it extensively too. So on keeping me awake, yeah, for sure. I'm good. So I went to the 9-foot homemade oak bar on Friday.
Oh, did you?
At Chris Lanuti's residence. I did. It was interesting. So, our buddy from Sox in the Basement, he's going to start doing these like long form, like interviews, like at his basement bar. So I did the first one. I think it comes out on Monday.
We talking like half an hour?
I think I did an hour with him because his show is a half hour. So he cut part of it for his show with Ed. But then the other part, like we sat down there for an hour. I did a lot on Robert and Crochet because he was very much against it. I think other people are too. And look, like full disclosure, like I hope they keep Robert and Crochet, and I think they will keep Robert and Crochet. But that's not because they're not interested in doing something. I think Chris Getz is always going to be interested, like if the trade return is good enough. I don't think they're going to get enough to trade either guy. I don't. Like, I kind of feel like if they trade Garrett Crochet like in 2 weeks, like maybe I'll look like a fool saying this, but I think we're going to like the return. That's how much they're going to need in return. And I just kind of feel like if you're a contender, like, how do you do that? Like, how many innings is this guy going to throw? Like, how does he help you, right? And you and I didn't get into the Rosenthal stuff. Like, look, if Rosenthal's writing the article that he wrote last week, there's a reason why it's out there, right?
He's definitely heard something.
Yeah, like AJ Preller is a madman, right? And he wants Crochet really bad. I personally don't think the Padres like have the juice to get it done, even though they always do. I think this would be a position player return and they can't swing it. But there's a reason why he's in town for Cubs Sox. This is out there. And then he writes an article on Pedro too, right? So the White Sox very clearly want it public that the Padres like have, try to go all in for Garrett Crochet. So take that for what it is. I ultimately don't think they'll get a return good enough and he'll be here. Like I'd offer Garrett Crochet 5 years and $70 million right now. Like I would just like, I'm convinced the control's a problem. If he's not going to stay, like if you go to him and he's like, I'm not interested in signing, then I'm more willing to, kind of talk about dealing him now. But I mean, if he's amenable to staying, like I'd try to work something out and keep him personally.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, it could be that they've already talked to him and that's why they want it out there. I mean, that's entirely possible. We don't know, what the specifics are of what's going on in the offices over there. But yeah, if that's out there, I would think that that's probably a thing. As Trey mentions here, Sox need premium bats in any deal. We've talked about this, that the White Sox are just about chock full of pitching. Now, when that comes to a guy like a Hagen Smith or a Chase Burns, completely different scenario here. They're not stocked up full of pitching if those guys are available, and if, the Padres are willing to give, some sort of ridiculous, like their top 2 starting pitchers that they have in their system who are, coveted by a lot of people, I would be okay with that, but I would rather have Ethan Salas.
Right. I mean, if Robbie Snelling's coming as part of that trade, like that's fine. I don't think you can do another Cease trade where it's like a pitching return. It's like a pitching heavy return. Because there's nowhere for these guys to throw. Like it's just like eventually you're gonna have to get bats, and you have an owner that like isn't going to pay for them. So you have to draft and develop and trade for young bats most likely. So I know you knew we couldn't go an hour without me like throwing an owner dig in. So
no, but you have to, because and the thing is, I can't say that, oh well, you've got your owner Jerry Reinsdorf, he won't pay for bats. Well, guess what? He didn't pay for pitching either. Unless it's a closer or a relief arm, where the window of commitment is very small. That's always been his thing, is that he doesn't want to give the long deals. He wants to give short deals, and he's fine with paying market value, which, whatever. It just, he doesn't pay for either, really.
But in this climate, it seems like pitching's easier to get.
So far, yeah.
Like in trade, I mean, like teams are much more willing to deal their top arms than they are their top bats. And it wasn't always like that,
It's all the Tommy John injuries, it's gotta be. It's just that they look at the durability of these guys and see how often these guys are going down with, oblique injuries or lat injuries or, UCLs. It's just that the injury risk for a guy that pitches, whether it be a reliever that pitches a couple times a week or whether it be a starter that only pitches once every 5 days, you never know what's going to happen with the health risk, so a little bit easier to deal when you've got a ridiculous offense is going to bail out a lot of pitchers anyway, so
lots of comments on Robert. You can pull him up if you feel like it, but I can address that. So obviously, like, there's the injury concern. Like, the White Sox run the risk of, like, that he just keeps getting hurt, and then he's not worth what we think he is, right? But 3.5 years of control, a really good contract. Bob Nightingale, in his piece today, basically said that the White Sox need more than the Nationals got for Juan Soto. So a refresher there, like Mackenzie Gore was one of the top pitching prospects in baseball at the time, but had struggled for sure. Like, with San Diego. CJ Abrams was a top prospect who went in the Andrew Vaughn draft really high. And then James Wood was a high school guy out of IMG who was a later pick, who's now like the number one prospect in all of baseball. And then they also got a flyer, like Dominican, super young Dominican arm who was very highly regarded out of the international market. Like that was a monster haul for 3 years of Juan Soto, I believe. I don't see anybody paying that price like right now at this deadline. And I kind of think like the deal that you'd be capable of making right now to someone, you can probably make at this time next year with 2.5 years of control.
Yeah, I don't see him. I know that what they're saying that's what the White Sox are saying they're going to need. I just don't like. I'm skeptical that somebody would pay that with his injury history. You don't have that injury history with Juan Soto.
Right.
I mean, he's had some injuries, yes, but I mean, you're not looking at, like serious time missed every single year, Yeah,
and it's not Gold Glove center field either, though, so there are, but like you're buying non-injured Luis Robert, right? Now I will say Clutch Hattrick brings up the Phillies. That's the type of team because they have the president of baseball operations with the freaking ball sack to make that trade. But you're unloading everything, like it's not like the Phillies have really good prospects, but it's not like they have like a loaded system by any means. I mean, like they have Aiden Miller in their system, who was a first rounder last year, who they stole, who's been great. Like he's like a top 50 prospect in baseball right now. They would have to headline with that. They have Kaba, who's a young international guy that's hitting. They have Carl Crawford's son. And that's just on the offensive side, plus they have like Mick Abel, who's really struggled this year. And Andrew Painter, who's like coming back from Tommy John.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, like, here's the thing. Like, if it happens, that's the type of thing where it's just like Dave gets desperate, unloads everything, and it happens, right? So the Phillies are a very good guess. Seattle makes a lot of sense. Doug mentions that he has an issue with it just because of how young the guys are, but look, they're one of the only systems with enough position players to make the deal. But yeah, like a lot of those guys are young,
So the other guys that were in that Padres deal is Robert Hassel III, and then Harleen Susana, the pitcher from the Dominican that you were talking about.
And that is like a monster haul at the time. And rightfully so, because it's Juan Soto, and he was like 23 years old at the time, right?
100%. Yeah.
But, like, he was not going to re-sign with the Nationals. And, like, I would say at this point, it looks like Abrams and Wood are going to be long-term pretty good contributors for them, right? Like, so they did okay. I just think people have to understand that's what you're dealing with. Like you're trading a known for a bunch of unknowns. The question the White Sox have is how quickly can you realistically contend without like the players that you get in return for Luis Robert, right? Like, is there a scenario where you keep Luis Robert and you win in 26 and 27 with him? If that answer is no, they're probably going to deal him. I don't know what that answer is because I don't know what their financials look like. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know how much they planned on spending, right? Like if Colson Montgomery comes up and he's a dude and Edgar Caro's really good and you add Luis Robert to those guys, like with all the young pitching and you spend some money, yeah, they could win in 26 and have Luis Robert for 2 years. But he's not going to be here after 27 with Boris, like as an agent. He's just not. So, those are like the types of decisions they have to make.
Yeah. Probably a repetitive convo, but what about any surprise guys who could be traded, such as Sheets?
Yeah, Sheets is my surprise guy to get moved. Like, I wouldn't be stunned. So he's like not particularly good, but he's much better than I was anticipating. So he's a 125 WRC plus guy. Very, very useful, right? With power that he doesn't use all the time. But he's only a 0.4 WAR player because he has no position and they continue to play him in the field. Now, I feel like if Sheets was somebody's DH, probably more effective than you trying to stick him in an outfield corner where it like saps all of his value. But yeah, he's done the job this year. Sheets has been pretty solid.
Yeah, I know he's got a couple of long balls here as of late, but I mean, we've had this conversation before, is that he's a bat to ball guy more than he is a power guy. So sticking him at a DH, you better have plenty of other power around him in the lineup, and a complete black hole in the DH spot to view him as an upgrade and be willing to give away something else for that,
Well, so Trey mentions O'Hearn, but I feel like O'Hearn like knows what the job is, right? Like, isn't he like a walk strikeout power guy? Like, Sheets like doesn't want to play like that. Like, if Sheets played like that, he'd be really valuable. He'd be like a Mitch Moreland type who plays for a long time because you understand the assignment. You hit 240, you hit 30 bombs, and but he doesn't really want to play like that.
Yeah, I don't think to be fair, I don't think that he could do that, because we've seen him, at least I feel like, over the last couple of years. If you're looking for him to sell out for power, what you end up getting is the guy who's hitting 200 and you still get singles and doubles out of him.
Right.
It's like, if he's pushing to hit a home run, I don't feel like the output's really going up without everything else drastically getting worse.
Yeah.
Just my personal
opinion. Yeah, and I mean, and it's still an OPS like in the sevens, right? And we're talking about how he's been decent. Look, if they can get a prospect for Gavin Sheets, I think they will make that trade. This general manager is not married to anybody on this team. So
he is not. Paul DeJong.
Yeah, I think they're going to get something decent. I mean, look, it's not going to be great, but it's going to be a guy Ian's heard of for sure. Like, I'm going to be like, this guy's like, oh yeah, I see him play all the time for some random team. I mean, so yeah, like if they're going to get, I mean, Paul DeJong's been better than Dansby Swanson. Like, he's a decent,
yes, he has.
He's a decent defender, and he's going to hit 25 bombs as a shortstop. Like, somebody will pick up Paul DeJong for sure.
And he's not making what, $25 or $30 million?
Yeah, he's making like $2 million. Because look, another guy that understands the assignment, right? Play good defense at shortstop and hit bombs. That's your job. That's what you need to do. Yep. I feel like all these guys like this, they kind of get stuck in between, right? They don't know whether they're supposed to be this like on base guy or power guy. So they try to do both, and then they like wash out of the league. Like, if you can hit 30 bombs in the middle infield, like, it doesn't matter what your batting average is if you play good defense.
Yeah, you take a walk here and again, and hit home runs and play a decent defense, and you'll have a job for a while. Speaking of guys, also Tommy Pham, definitely gone.
Definitely.
But like, the thing is that he came here and he does his thing, and he does it unapologetically, and he just goes out and does his thing, and let's just go out there and be a badass, pretty much.
Yeah, and he's gonna be helping the Braves at some point. So
somebody, I mean, I don't know whether it'll be them. Yeah. I mean, they make sense for sure.
Yeah,
but somebody's gonna want him. Despite the fact that they might think that he's a huge pain in the ass, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's only half a year.
True, exactly.
You can take out a huge pain in the ass for just a little bit of time. I do think it's going to be a very eventful deadline for fans, because while I wouldn't bet on Robert or Crochet moving, But I think it's going to be nonstop rumors about those guys where it's like every big insider's talking about it. And even on deadline day, like if we do a live show or whatever, it's going to be like, oh my God, like, are they actually going to do this? Like, going to go down to the wire and then they'll keep them, right? But I think they're going to make a ton of smaller trades. Fetty, I think, brings back quite a bit. Like, you'll have Kopech and whatever. Like all over. Oh, I'll go over for sure. But
I'm kind of thinking so too.
Over, but it depends on if they start packaging guys, right? Like if it's Fetty and Kopech for something good.
But that knocks you down
maybe
under, probably.
Maybe then it's 5 instead of 5.5, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, like there's no reason not to Chris Flexen and whatever, right? Like Tanner Banks or like whoever, like add something to Chris Flexen to enhance the value, right? Whoever. So they might package guys, but if they don't package guys, it's way over 5. It might be 5.5 just pitchers.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. It's entirely possible.
And a guy like John Brebbia, like I thought was going to be better for sure, right? But like somebody's going to take John Brebbia from you and give you a DSL arm, like it, but that still counts as a trade on Clutch's 5.5. So,
yeah. All right. So, do you want to move off the trade market here and move to the very, very, very long home runs that were hit in the last 24 hours?
Yes. My goodness.
All right. So let's bring up the one from yesterday, which currently, let me look here right quick. It is sitting at, you've probably seen it because it's got 117,000 views on Twitter. Where is it? There's my layers. And here we go.
And the 2-1. Wolkow smashes this one to right center. And this is a one-run game. That is over the back fencing and into the woods, out of the ballpark. Oh my, 457 feet for George Wolkow. And it's
114 miles an hour. All right, so let's talk about the significance of this, because I've seen some of the replies to the tweet are just kind of make you want to beat your head against the wall. This guy is 18 years old. Guys who are 18 years old are usually in high school, number one, or just graduated. They're hitting with BB Core bats, and they're still hitting the ball probably 95 miles per hour exit velos. This guy hit one 114 miles an hour and 457 feet over those billboards out into the woods. Insane. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but he strikes out all the time, Ian.
He does strike out a few times.
And here's the thing. He's going to strike out a ton. And the White Sox know he's going to strike out a ton. But like when you can get 17-year-old George Wolkow for $1 million in round 7, this is why you do it, right? Because he flashes this sort of thing. Like George Wolkow literally should have graduated from Downers Grove South High School like 10 days ago.
North.
Was
Downers
it North?
Downers Grove North.
Okay.
Because I see the DGN stand-up tweets. So
the Downers Grove people are going to be mad at me. So
yes, they will.
So he literally
the Mustangs will be happy, but
he literally should have graduated from that high school 10 days ago. He reclassified into the 2023 draft because he didn't want to go to South Carolina, and now he's playing baseball games in North Carolina. This is what you're going to get, guys. Like it's going to be a 40% K rate, maybe higher in Kannapolis. There's going to be 0 for 4 with 4K nights, 0 for 5 with 5K nights, as we've seen. But there's also going to be massive bombs like we just saw, and it's going to be fun. And, he's playing center field. And,
right field?
Is it right field?
Yeah, right
so
field.
He was playing center field in Arizona. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, okay, let's move to the next one here, which happened today. against not that one. We don't want to see that one. We just watched that one.
This one to right center.
This one happened today versus the Smokies, and it went even farther. Wilfred Veras.
Massive snag. Here's a high, deep drive to center field, and that one is gone. The bat of Veras.
Yeah, bomb.
Yeah. You don't even see the ball land because it went so high up in the trees out in center field.
And on that concrete walkway, second solo home
Insane.
Run of the inning, and it's
now this is the same kind of thing that you're going to see, which is that you're going to have some strikeouts. You're going to have some swing and miss. He does have some pretty decent bat to ball, but to not strike out, and consistently put the ball in play and also take walks. One comment that I heard on one of the broadcasts was that he is nearly impossible to walk. And that is accurate. I think he actually did take a couple of walks this week, which is nice, but, let's see, it went 469 feet at 111 miles per hour. Absolute tank. Yes, and also we can talk about the I don't have those videos loaded up here, but Edgar Caro has been on one. In the last couple of days, he's hit a couple of home runs. I think something like in the last, 2 series or something like that, he's hitting something around almost 550. So he's on his way back up. He did drop for a while in his average, and all of his numbers were starting to drop because he did go into a slump for a couple of weeks. But now they're all the way on the swing back up. So
for sure, and overall numbers is a 140 WRC plus in Birmingham as a 21-year-old catcher that switch hits. That's probably,
and his defense has gotten really better.
He's definitely going to catch with a 10% walk rate. Edgar Caro's pretty good. That again. We've mentioned this. Rick Hahn and Ken Williams. I don't know who the hell did it, but that was a heist last year. That trade was totally calling up Artie Moreno and being how desperate are you? Give me these two guys.
Insane. In fact, on the I can't remember if it was the Smokies or if it was the week before. I think it was this week with the Smokies. They were talking about that trade and just absolutely cracking up on air in the middle of the game about how bad that trade was for the Angels.
Yeah, because then you didn't even know at the time that they were going to put both those guys on waivers, right? Because then Lopez and Giolito both went to Cleveland once it was kind of determined that Anaheim was going to be out of it. God, that was off. That's just, and I remember seeing terrible. I remember at that night that it happened. I was like, "This is awesome," and
that's what I said.
And I knew that Caro was struggling because he was too young, and Bush, his stuff had kind of taken a step back. Now, we might not feel this way totally if Kai Bush was the Kai Bush that showed up last year. But he's way better.
Talking about 10 days, essentially 10 days of Ronaldo Lopez and Lucas Giolito. Now they had him for, I think they had Giolito for 5 starts or 6 starts, and they kept Ronaldo for a week longer than they kept Giolito.
Mm-hmm.
But the only 10 days from within that trade, I think they were still in the race, and then they were done. So they gave away their second and third prospect for 10 days. It's just absolutely brutal. And yes, while if Kai Bush was doing what he was doing last year, yes, that would not be good. Obviously, I'm much happier with what he's been doing this year, but I would still say that it was a massive overpay just because it was for 2 guys that we knew were leaving anyway. So it's a win-win regardless. It just happens to be a double win.
Anything for rentals that are going out the door is good, but they actually got good stuff for those guys, which is I kind of feel at the time everybody kind of thought that the Dodgers deal was better than the Angels trade. The Angels trade is definitely better.
Yeah, no, the Angels trade is definitely better. I mean, Nastrini and Leisure for Joe Kelly and Lance Lynn, that was definitely, and the thing is that they weren't very good with the White Sox last year, and you still got two fairly,
two guys,
two good prospects,
Yeah, and Trace Thompson.
And Trace Thompson.
For the ghost of Lance Lynn. Yeah,
the ghost of Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly, who I don't even know what to say about him anymore. He's just he'll probably be terrible, and then in the playoffs he'll be at least useful, or something along those lines. Yeah, that's what he does every year.
Right now he's at home throwing baseballs through his windows at home. Probably
trying to work on his changeup grips and accidentally throwing through his bedroom window. Ridiculous. So he is still perennially on the IL. There's nothing that he has seemed to be able to do to keep himself off the IL. But he still throws 98 miles an hour.
Yeah,
from a complete stop halfway through his motion. So that not too many people can do that. Do you have anything more for this week? Do you have anything else interesting?
I don't know how interesting it is. The DSL started. I wrote the preview. I think most people have read it or looked at it by now. Nothing really earth-shattering out of the DSL. Their top guy has struggled a bit. Eduardo Herrera is not walking at all. He's hitting 308, but his OPS is still under 7 because he doesn't walk. But look, he could have a big week this week, and then it looks fine, right? But another guy was a $550K signing, Jesus Promoli. So he was a third baseman that's also caught. He's playing first. He's got an 880 OPS early on. He's hitting pretty well. So look, he has to hit to be anything. So that's interesting. And then the biggest noteworthy piece, Yoiker Fallardo is a Venezuelan right-hander who had lots of helium. It's a guy Ben Badler wrote about. It's a guy that others had kind of told me about. The White Sox signed this kid. You're agreeing to deals with these guys when they're 14 years old. And now he's just a massive right-hander. And he threw 5 innings in the DSL, which is a little bit uncommon. Sometimes starters don't throw that many innings. He's a workhorse. He goes 5 innings, struck out 10, walked 1. So I'll be curious to see what he does this week.
10 Ks. That's good stuff. Yeah, I put it out as a tweet because I couldn't almost believe my eyes when I saw that somebody in the DSL threw 5 innings and had 10 Ks. I think he had one walk, or one hit.
Yeah.
And 1 walk or something like that.
Yeah. I'm surprised White Sox Twitter isn't saying that he should be at Winston-Salem.
He should be on the White Sox.
Yeah. Well,
right now. Yeah. He's like Pedro.
Well, and usually the pitchers in that league have really good stuff, but they walk everybody. So, yeah, lots of questions.
Yes,
Clutch asked about college ball. I've watched some. Ian is going to witness a lot of it in person. So we might have some in-person accounts on young Jack Cagliano and future Chicago White Sox first baseman. So
yeah, I don't know which games I'm going to get to yet, but I will be in Omaha. My kid's in a baseball tournament that's kind of in cahoots with the College World Series, so we're going to be out there doing that. And I don't know. Hopefully, you get to see. We're going to go to a couple of games while we're out there, and hopefully, there's something good to talk about. We shall see, though.
Oh, Trey, yeah, you guys are going to meet up, so that's good.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, I'll be there. So, you know where I'm at on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got anything?
I like Doug's idea about the free beer if we show the brand. Beer. Yeah. Yes. I have this Golden Road mango cart that's awesome. That's made out of California. So yes, they could send me some of this. That would be cool.
Yes, I go to a brewery in Glen Ellen called Two Hounds Red and get myself some very nice sour beer from there, and it's pretty fantastic. You got anything else this week, James? You good?
I think we've done enough.
Yeah, that's always the question. Have we done enough? I guess this week we've done enough. I don't know. So next week because I'm going to be in Omaha, I'm not going to be back until after the normal stream time. So I assume we'll probably push back, and we're going to have a bunch of extra content coming up this, as we lead up to the draft here. If you haven't already looked at it, we were on with Prospects Live's Tyler Jennings. It's here on YouTube. It's also available in podcast format. If you are listening to this in podcast format, know that usually every Sunday at 8 p.m., we are here on YouTube, and we are also on twitch.tv/FutureSox. FutureSox.net, you can find all of our written content, including James' DSL preview that he mentioned earlier. You can find all sorts of draft profiles, which are starting to pop up. Sleepy Harold just did one on
Connor Griffin
out of Mississippi. We also have, you can find all these podcasts there as well. Also,
there's a good one Tuesday on the Roundup. I think Aram Layton's joining. I think we've tweeted out parts of that. That'll be really good. He did the Just Baseball like top prospects list, and the White Sox are very well represented. So,
thanks for coming in, Clutch. Appreciate it. So you can find all that stuff there. There's a Patreon link if you feel like supporting the work that we do. We would appreciate that. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He is James Fox, James Fox 917. You can find us at FutureSox on the Twitter/X. We appreciate your time. Thank you for coming and hanging out, and we will see you guys next week, or possibly a couple days after next week's 1 week date. Thank you so much. Have a great night.